Welcome to Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated's Fortitude Speaks. Born from the theme Forward with Fortitude, this series is about what fortitude looks like in action. Fortitude Speaks.
Well, I feel like elections are always going on in your community. Beyond the presidential election, beyond midterm election, you have tons of local elections, you have special elections. And many times, especially on special elections, the turnout is extremely low. I think elections should be a continuous process in your day-to-day life. If there's any ballots going out, I don't care if it's SGA at your child's school, if it's a ballot in where someone is having to sit and make decisions on behalf of other people, you need to engage. You need to start teaching your children to engage. We have to make sure that we are participating in all of these elections. We have to make sure, especially on the local level, all politics are local. And so when you talk about your local government, that is a focus in where we need to be right now. There's nothing we're going to be able to do for a minute on the federal level. But your local level, you could still engage. Your local level, especially where you're talking about city council, full and county commission races, all of those right now are people of color. They're running these cities, they're running these counties. And so that's a place in where I think we really should focus on the House and state side. Of course, in many of these states around the United States, it is a very still GOP-ran state houses. However, the numbers and the margins of those seats are beginning to close significantly. And so there's some opportunities for us there of taking back over some of the state houses. I think in the midterm elections, there are going to be some opportunities in some of these states, Texas, Ohio, Nevada. So there are going to be a few states in where we could play to take back over majority of the House and Senate, right? And so I just think we need to do the numbers. But more importantly, I'll tell you the main thing we need to do, we need to come up with a strategy and we need to shut up. That's what we need to do.
There you go.
We got to be quiet. You know, we're just in this social media world where we want to instantly share everything. I think we have trained the other side to fight us. We've trained them. They're using our tactics against us. They're using our culture against us. They're using our way of life against us. And so I think whatever we're going to do, we need to come together as a collective body. We need to stay together as a collective body. And we need to strategize. And then we need to shut up and wait on implementation.
Yeah. You know, the other thing, you made me think about something when you said that about the local elections, whether they're dog catcher or whatever they are. These local elections are important. Judge elections are important.
That's right.
And people don't pay attention to those elections. But you know, I've begun to realize, I think one of the reasons people don't vote, besides the fact they think their vote doesn't count, they don't know the importance of the specific positions that they're voting for and the impact of a position. So let's say it's a local city council. They don't realize, here's what city council is responsible for in your community. Here's what the animal control center is responsible for your community and how it impacts you. The relevance of an election to an individual and the effect the person in that particular position can have on your life is something that we really haven't talked about to people. We just tell them vote because all elections are important, and that's important to say. But for a local community, one of the things Deltas could do in an activist way is, since they can't talk about candidates, they can talk about what this person does every day in their job. The secretary of, what's the one Brunessa ran for? The clerk of courts. The clerk of courts actually schedules hearings. They schedule your legal hearings, your bankruptcy hearings, your divorce hearings, your hearings about who's going to get custody of the kid, those things. And if you have somebody in there who is not astute at managing paperwork Or if the voters, when you're running for that office, you don't tell you don't tell the voters, if you don't put somebody in there good, and here's my credentials, and here's why I should be in that position, and here's how that simple position that's called clerk of courts affects your daily life, then they're not going to pay attention to voting to it. That's just one example of this judge handles these kinds of cases at this level. If you're in court for any of these things, this judge position is going to affect you. And then D4 can come in and say, and your best interest is not to vote for Judge Jaron, because Judge Jaron is not going to be supporting of these issues here. Here's why, from a personal perspective, you need to vote for a certain person. I also think that would help people understand, and we have to get our local chapters to do that. We can't do that from a national level in D4, but we can educate and train our organizations in terms of what they need to do to get out the vote. We lost this last election, or the side that we thought was important lost the last election because people didn't vote. We could have, and those votes could have counted, but the importance and significance of specific things that a person would say they would do weren't really taken into account. Elections are all year round. They never end. They're always, and I think we have to stay on our guard all the time to look out for these. In some cases, a local mayor election is even more important than an election at a higher level because of the things they control. And if we move to states' rights, then those things are even more important than that. The other reason I think we have to pay attention all the time is because we need to have a pipeline not only for 25, 26, we need one for 28, and for the next elections that come up. So we have to spend time training people now in terms of what they need to do. We need to work with our collegians. Here's something that's happened with collegians that I'm finding out. For student body government officers, left-wingers on campus are now trying to make sure that they're winning these student elections on college campuses so they can control college campuses and control the mindsets of the students who are on campuses. So depending on what side of the table you're on, we sometimes used to think SJ elections were just somebody who wanted to run. No. Now, those student body elections and those positions and appointments that student body officers make on their local campus have become politicized. They're no longer worrying as much about the campus as they are the future. And we have to train our young women that when you're running for these offices, you're going to become political sized. Sometimes they even get nasty, but you are training yourself to run for the future, and you're also putting the importance of some issues in other students' minds. So it starts early in terms of what we have to do. We cannot not look at elections that you have in high schools and in colleges because now they're more significant in terms of who they are. And we have to start building that pipeline to make sure the pipeline is long and our bench strength is there so we don't have to scour for candidates. And that's one thing that D4 Women in Action is really focused on doing.
So one of the things that we've been talking about was what is the strategy moving forward? Everyone talks about the 92%. Everyone envisions that picture. We saw the meme with the black women sitting on the building and watching America burn. And, and we know we now have to come down off the building, right? And so what do we do since we're down off the building? I think it's a number of things. One of the things, I think we're in this place of learning. I think we need to take our time to understand Civics 101. Yep. I think we're in this moment where we need to understand just our overall Black history. History will repeat itself when people don't know their history. Amen. And so we're in this place where we need to go into a quiet space of learning. We are facing a time in a situation that we have never seen before. And so since we are facing something new, old tactics might not work, but they might work with some small adjustments and some improvements to those tactics. But the only way we're going to get there if we understand the basic tactics in the first place. We understand what happened during the 60s, all of the different layers of strategy. You had an inside game, you had an outside game. And we have to run both this time. We have to go in and have an inside game and where we have people at the table and they're listening, and they are taking that information and making sure that information is being transmitted to the outside, and the outside people are out there making sure they're making the phone calls, they're activating the community in a way that causes movement, and so that you would have the necessary reaction for the inside to then garner the change that's necessary. I was a lobbyist for about close to 20 years. And Soror Janice Mathis was at Rainbow Push Coalition at that time. And I would call them when I was in legislative session every morning about 6 o'clock. I would call Janice and I would call Helen Butler. And I would tell them all of the bills that were going to be presented that day that was going to negatively impact the citizens of our state. We would get to the State House. We would see each other in the hallways, and I act as if I had never seen these women a day in my life. They would have coalitions of people working both sides, House and Senate, talking to the legislators about all of the bills that I'd previously educated them on. And most of the time, we would go in and we would either stop harmful things that were going to happen to us or at least slow it down. And so that's what we need right now, inside, outside games. We have to understand all of the different levels of government. I think you said earlier, Soror Smith, the roles of those things. We also have to understand our roles in politics. You know, we're now, because we don't have a strong outside game, what we're seeing in many of the state houses and elected officials becoming inside advocates. Well, we don't need you to be an inside advocate. we need your activism. We need the activism on the outside.
Right.
We need you at the table as a policy maker, and so that we could live to fight another day. And so I think there's some readjustments, some realignment, some strategies that we need to put in place. But the only way we're going to get there is by doing some studying, some analysis, and the necessary adjustments while we're in this transformational period of politics in this country right now.
Yeah, that collaborative spirit is so important. And you're right, you can't share with everybody what you're doing because that blows our cover in terms of where we are. I will say, I remember back when Dr. Height, when she was alive, we were in the same building. For a while, Delta Sigma Theta was out of the headquarters, but we were in the same building that Dr. Height was in while they were working on their headquarters building. So we would meet on a regular basis at lunchtime, or sometimes after work, I'd go down and talk to her. And she would say to me, Soror Smith, we are like crabs in a barrel. I want you to always remember that. When one of us moves up, you know, we pull them back down again. And she said, unfortunately, that's the history of our people. And the other side will plant things in people's minds and say, well, you know, if you're there, so-and-so might not get there. They knew exactly what they were doing when they messed with our psyche to put that kind of mindset in there. We've reached a point now where, and I think the big thing we always have to remember is this fight is not about us as individuals. It's not about anybody. It's certainly not about me. I thought that way when I was in Delta as president. It's not about me. It's about what's best for Delta Sigma Theta. It can't be about any one leader. I was blessed to have a council of presidents that really worked together and didn't worry about who took the lead as long as we got to the goal line. And I think we have to do that with the kind of thing that Rhonda's doing as a lobbyist to make sure that connection's there. Nobody has to know that connection's there except the people that need to know. But I think that collaborative spirit and the fact that we are working together strategically to make sure that we can reach that goal and not letting anybody else get in our head in terms about who's right or who's wrong or that should be the leader, it doesn't matter because as long as we think that way, we're never going to move the needle more than one step and give them the opportunity to move it back one step. So that's critically important in terms of what we're doing. The other thing I tell young people all the time or folks that are trying to fight battles, you got to know the enemy. Now, I was a debater in college and won debate competitions, and I taught debate for a while when I taught high school. In order to really play the game well, you have to know how the other side thinks and appreciate why they think that way. It's not enough to know the way they think. Why do they think that's best? Because, you know, we always think we know better than somebody else. He or she might be able to convince me that their way is better. But I've got to make sure anybody I'm working with or trying to win a battle with or a discussion with, that I have the inside track either through research or in my head or talking to other people to know them, to understand where they're coming from. So I can meet them where they are and hopefully change their mind and attitude about something from the perspective, because I got the knowledge of what turns them on and makes them think that way. That's a little bit tougher to do, takes a little bit more time, but it is strategic. It takes time to develop that kind of relationships. I don't put anybody's thoughts aside. I know I got to take in everybody's. And if I got to try and prove something to somebody, I got to understand how they think and where they are. And I've had people say to me, one woman in particular, I was trying to convince her on something. I called her on the phone. I said, we really need to talk about this. And she said, you know what, Beverly, I don't really want to talk to you about that. I said, well, why not? Because you could convince the devil to have ice water in hell.
That's true.
And I
That's
do
true.
not want to get in the conversation. So I said to her, so what you're saying to me is, if I talk to you about it, you know full well you're wrong, and I can change your mind. And so we didn't have the discussion. I did win in the end, I will say that, because she finally succumbed to what we were doing. But you know, it's being able to do that, and if you have that kind of talent or skill, using it to make sure you develop your strategy that way. If you have people on your team and you don't have that mindset, use the people on your team to help you understand how we can get to the other side, just like she did with Janice and Helen.
All right, go to our website.
Madam President?
Yes, just go to our website. You know, D4 is not a member organization.
Right.
It is for you to come in and engage in our activities, and more importantly, for you to support us. And so you engage by participating in our workshops, engage by partnering with us with things that you're doing that want to advance justice in this around this country. It is an opportunity for you to strengthen your networks. We have state group chats. We're promoting those always.
Right.
Everywhere in the United States, D4 has a group chat, and it's the app. You know, you are part of all these group chats in your community. It is a simple group chat. However, this group chat is 100% focused on the politics within your state.
Right.
It allows you to go in and see everyone that's running for elected office in your state. It's a place where you'll have discussion around legislative issues that are going on in your state, where you can, if there's a candidate that wants to fundraise, opportunities for them to get in and making sure that they're soliciting funds for fundraising efforts. And then it tells you about activities. D4 often will post different materials in each of the states, especially national notifications. But it's a place for us to come together. It's a place for you to have community with like-minded people. It is private. It's only Deltas.
It's monitored.
And so it's monitored. We have rules, all of those good things. When you get in and violate any one of our rules, we will come in and nicely have a conversation with you. But it's really an opportunity where you have this space of Delta political community and where you can talk about politics in a very open way. We also, on the giving side, our soror, Regina Wallace-Jones, is the CEO of Act Blue. And she talked to us about the best way for D4 as an organization to begin to mobilize and fundraise. And one of the things that she said was use the Obama's model, right? Where he had these small donations, but they were reoccurring. And so she's told us $20.20 from every Delta on a monthly basis, reoccurring donations, would give us the budget that we need to grow the organization in the way in which we need to grow it and sustain it over time. And so we're always asking people to do that. You can do all of that at our website, deltaforwomeninaction.org. We're on Instagram. We're on all of the social media platforms. So come and follow us, stay engaged with us. When you have issues in your community that you think we need to know about, making sure you reach out to us and share that information. But we're also, during Delta's National Convention, we want to call all sorors that are elected officials. If you are active or inactive as a member of Delta Sigma Theta, it doesn't matter. We want to bring every soror at every level. We're talking federal government right down to Soror Smith said the dog catchers. If you're an elected dog catcher, come on in. But we want to bring every soror that's an elected official in some capacity, judicial side of the house, local governments, county governments, whatever it is, we want to bring all of those sorors together. Can you imagine about 1,000 of us in a room? The amount of power at that table so that we can build a pipeline, come up with strategies, leverage one another's resources, put right messaging out, really create this way in which we are strategically developing our power in this very collective manner moving forward. And so that is the other reason why D4 was created, so that we could create this pipeline, but more importantly, we can expand Delta's power around the country.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do.
Yeah. And I want to go back a minute just to why we need the money. I think, if there's a question in anybody's mind, campaigns are expensive. Candidates spend millions of dollars in campaigns, and their opponents spend sometimes multi-million dollars in campaigns. We need to try and help them. Now, we can't give directly to a candidate, but everything around a candidate's run for office, their supplies, their events that they may have to have, their office facilities, those kinds of things. While we can't give a direct dollar, we can, in fact, support them in terms of what they need, training that they might need for some of their campaign people. One of the goals we have, and one of the things that the C4 allows us to do, by the way, is to have a lobbyist at the states, a lobbyist on Capitol Hill. Can you imagine D4 Women in Action, Delta Sigma Theta's arm, having a lobbyist to support the issues and the concerns that we have? Lobbyists cost money. We can't afford to do that, to pay the lobbyists and have that part of the vision come true without the support dollars that we need from anybody. And Delta, we ask for Delta to support us, but we're not, everybody's money is green. Our first donor was a white female out of Texas who happened to have been a mentor. Her mentor was Shirley Chisholm, Barbara Jordan, and she gave us some money in a large donation because of that. We've had donors give us as much as $50,000 because they really believed in the cause. We were founded in 2020, so we focus on $20.20 because it's easy to remember, but we really can't achieve the dream for you. We can't achieve the dream that we have for the political scene in this country and for democracy. We can't do the things that we want to do in terms of vision to have those feet at the table unless we're able to get donors and support in the financial foundation to really fund the organization that we have and that we're so proud of right now. 5 years this year.
5 years.
We're going on. So we're celebrating our 5th anniversary in July of 2020.
Yes.
2025.
So I am a 92 percenter. And I'm also a part of the 44,000 that got on the Win with Black Women call.
Yes, indeed.
So shout out to our soror Joteka Edie.
Absolutely.
But more importantly, shout out to our soror artist Hampton Cowan, because artist was the one that actually called Zoom,
yes,
the
indeed.
CEO of Zoom, and said, yo,
that's right.
We got 44,000 chicks that need to talk tonight, and your Zoom won't let us do it. So she expanded the capacity as that result of that call from artists. But again, Delta is making waves in this country. But like I said earlier, we don't have a choice but to engage right now. Everything that our ancestors have worked for is now under fire. It is being attacked, and we are now the ones that must be the front line at this moment in time. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I lived in Selma, was around, enough to meet our soror Amelia Boyson, met John Lewis, met tons of leaders of the civil rights community as a young girl, and many of them poured into me a lot of that knowledge and their experiences. Ordinary people willing to do an extraordinary thing. And I think that's what we have to do. We are now that group of ordinary people that have to figure out this extraordinary thing that we have to do for the next generation. So many of our ancestors prayed for this day for us. And we have to pray for the next generation. I have an 18-year-old, and I want my boy to have a bright future. Yeah. I want him to have the American dream that everyone talks about. I want him to leave the dream, be a part of that dream that Dr. King talked about. And, you know, and we are so close to accomplishing so many things because Black folks have come a very long way. We have so many accomplishments in this country that we have contributed to. And we got to fight for the next generation. I mean, we don't really have a choice. But I think we have something that other folks don't have, and that is a strong relationship to the man above.
That's right.
And we have faith, and we understand resiliency in a much different way. And I think we're going to come through on the other side because we've been through worse. We came to this country in the belly of slave ships, and we now sit in boardrooms. And so the same God that brought us over on those ships will let us prevail right now today. And I truly, truly believe that. So we're going to have to do what our folks did. We're going to have to pray, and we're going to have to fight. And we're going to have to pray, and we're going to have to continue to fight. But what we cannot do is stop at any time.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. The first thing I think of when you say, why do we have to keep going? And the 92% has to do what it's doing and not take a break from that except to re-energize ourselves, to really come up with different strategies than we use in the current strategies, because I think because we put our strategies out there, people know them, so we do have to regroup. But I do think of my 2 children and my 5 grandchildren and their future. And it's not going to impact me nearly as much. It's going to impact them. And I want to see these kids have a bright future. I want to see them to be able to do the kinds of things I know they can do because of the talents they have. I want all of our children to be proud of who they are. And we are that's being wiped away. I think we have to retrain parents and retrain ourselves in terms of teaching our children their heritage and their history so they know about that slave ship and they can see where we came from. They can't be what they can't see. And if we give up on them, they're not going to be able to see the future in us. They're going to see us backing away, giving up. Well, that's no kind of lesson to teach the young people today. It's not a lesson we want to say, well, they're scared because they see all this stuff on social media. If they see us sit back, then their future is going to be, well, I guess we should just sit back and see what happens. No. They have to see what they can be. So if for no other reason, then we have to continue to fight so that they see that and we share that with them. And they're built to fight the future, so whatever we're fighting for is still there and continues to be there. Then we have to do it for that reason, if no other. Besides the fact that we've won before, we'll win again. But we cannot allow the future to be taken away from us because we want the example that we need our children to see so they can continue the fight.
I'll be honest with you. I don't have the luxury a lot of times to unplug the way I would like to unplug. But I do have the luxury to have a support system, a group of friends, a strong family, and so I have people around me that will feed into me for restoration. I love the spa. I love to get on the phone and giggle with people. We have this thing called Delta Sigma Theta. It's a sisterhood, if you haven't heard about it. And I have a whole bunch of sisters that I can often call on. And so I just think with all of the networks and all of the people in your lives, they allow you to do what you need to do. But I love to sleep, and I will take my quiet times. I try to stay in this place of always learning. Because, the work that we do requires you to always be up on so many topics. And so I don't have the luxury to just, abandon things 100% of the time. But I have come up with mechanisms and ways and where I can restore myself, and unplug and create boundaries and, say no, because no is, and I know she says I don't say no, but say no, and then the ability to just juggle and manage everything that we need. But I truly feel that many of us are called for different assignments. And when you are called for your purpose and assignment, God gives you different capacity.
That's true.
And so my capacity, because of what I do, it doesn't feel for me to be a struggle a lot of times, because this is so I can manage multiple things because it is a part of the calling on my life. And so I think that's why God tries to push people into purpose. So when you're in a place of purpose, it's not a job. You're in a place of purpose. It's not a task. It is a lifestyle, and you learn through the lifestyle how to manage and to move within those spaces.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Family first. Family is always helpful to me. I have a husband who's a practical joker, and sometimes that takes your time off of what you're doing because you don't have a choice but to revive from whatever bucket of stuff fell on your head that day. But anyway, it's family. My grandchildren, they're always upset because they think that I do too much. So I try to do some things with them and with my children, with my husband. Leadership is a lonely place to be. I am going to say that. And the downtime does not come often, and I think, led all my life. The sad part is I don't think I know any better than to not be involved and engaged in things. I used to hear it in grade school, high school, can you slow down? And I think it's a part of my DNA in terms of who I am. And every time I think there's a moment there, God gives me something else to do. And I do believe that God gives you the mental strength and the physical strength to get through the things that you have to get through. I know when I was president, I had 6 surgeries and major surgeries, but I recovered quickly. And my doctor at one point, I said, this healed so quickly. He said, with you, I think it's mind over matter is why your body does that. But I think that's a gift also. I don't recommend that to anybody to have to try and do. But I know physically sometimes when I have to rest. But in terms of just on a regular basis, just being quiet and by myself, because I'm not by myself often, really is a break for me. It's a mental break and a physical break. I'll watch something on TV that has absolutely nothing to do with politics, religion, or anything. Just something mindless helps. I love to watch movies and get away with that. I love to read, so I have a library at home, so I'll pick out a book and read for a while. I don't get a chance to do it that often, but my best way I balance myself is to spend time with myself, if that makes any sense. But that works for me because it gives me the mental break that I need to turn everything off and just do nothing that's related to nothing.
Fortitude Speaks.
To learn more about Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, visit deltasigmatheta.org. Stay ready, move forward with fortitude.